Welcome to Magic Circles in the Sky and today's episode. But before we begin, I'd like to give thanks to all the people that have liked, shared, and subscribed. This is very much appreciated. Now for today's episode, which is an original by Magic Circles in the Sky, and it's called Treacle's Journey, An Inner Child Speaks. The structure will remain the same in part. We'll have the summary. No, in actual fact, we have a prologue, then a summary, and we'll go into the various paragraphs with reflections. And then we'll do a comparison, a parallel between the fairy tale, my fairy tale, and another film that has a fairy tale called Princess Kayunga, I think. And the last part is going to be looking at the trigger points, and we'll close with my quote. So let's begin with Treacle's journey. An inner child speaks. Treacle watched the shadow of a vanquished king wave his final goodbye, disappearing beneath the luminous gap of the closing of the door. Princess Lily played a quiet game in the cold, humble castle, unaware that her father had just stepped out of her life forever. But deep within the sweet, sticky essence of Lily's sacred inner child clung to his compassionless departure, like a velvet fist gripping a thief in the night. The castle's drafty corridors felt suddenly hollow, like an empty trinket box robbed of its treasure, except for the most precious gem of all. Treacle's soul wept for the princess, poured into a syrupy swirl of hypnotic sorrow. Darkness teased at Lily's unspoken pain, and her inner child stood, watched, sensing, and shifting realms of emotion. A soft voice whispered from the transparent angel at her side. It's okay to cry. Treacle leaned in gently. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt, she said. The vacant look on Lily's face was a haunting echo of the king's own hollow mask, a man who had worn his crown-like armor and galloped through the silhouettes of his mind, dropping the jewel of his daughter's heart as he fled. Treacle felt the weight of unspoken trauma stirring in her memory, wounds she'd learned to hide like an illusionist, cloaked behind smoke and mirrors. Yet within the illusion lay her soul, curled up in plain sight, trapped in a gaping wound of abandonment, rejection, and the silent fear of being unloved. Lily's stoic mask began to crack as pain pulsed through her like an exposed nerve under Treacle's watchful gaze. The young girl buried her sorrow in a soft cushion, hoping it would dissolve like a bad dream. She longed to wake into the sweetness and joy of a fairy tale. Reflection, the quiet courage and observation of Treacle as a labor of love, as the inner child bears witness to the pain Princess Lily is too afraid to express. My pearls of wisdom. Lily's intuition is speaking through Treacle's heart, ready for her heart to be healed. The summary. Many years had passed since Treacle's veil of protection had been torn away from Princess Lily's began to unravel the fabric of her life. Her childhood had been wrapped in smoke, each memory a fog that never lifted, and she'd learned to tiptoe past dragons disguised as volatile moods and unpredictable silences. Lily came to realize that the sudden abandonment of her own passionate dreams had been quietly replaced by a performance, and that and one that honored the aspirations of the sovereigns around her rather than her own. She remembered the king's quiet exit that final night and how it mirrored every other time he turned away, like the time he'd come to her dance recital, only to vanish the moment he caught sight of his glittering legacy on stage. Lily had scanned the crowd, her eyes searching for a father who never stayed. Treacle had been beside her in the spotlight, small hands folded in her lap, already knowing how the scene would end. The still motionless crack of rejection would echo for years. It led the princess to become a shining prima ballerina, captivating the audience with her glow. But for Treacle, no applause could fill the empty chalice left by the absent parent's love. Lily wrestled with the fracture within her, the clash between who she was and who she was expected to be. She sobbed beside her throne, cradling her own broken longings. And then something shifted. The naked truth stepped out of the shadows, no longer afraid to be seen. Treacle's ember glow ignited, witnessed by the spirits who had watched over them all along. Lily was never meant to fit in. The oxygen returned to her lungs, releasing the suffocating grip of fear. Treacle, once her silent protector, no longer needed to guard her light. Reflection, the opening of the eyes, and the realization Lily is being exposed to the reality of the past and the consequence of how her life has been shaped by that past. My pearls of wisdom, by recognizing her broken heart, she has begun to step out of the shadows of fear. The rebirth. The princess' long battle to suffocate her uniqueness had come to an end. She had tried to shrink herself, moving from place to place in search of where she belonged. But no matter where she went, the emptiness remained. The chalice was still unfilled. It was never about fitting in. Her true magic had always been in her creativity, her gift for capturing imagination and reality through art, words, and movement. Treacle's voice, once hidden deep within, began to speak with strength. She breathed life into Lily's soul, weaving a filigreed landscape into the fabric of her becoming. The angel stood before her highness and said softly, "You can breathe now. You're allowed to take up space, you know." Lily blinked and started and started and startled by her own inner voice saying what she had always been too afraid to admit. The foundation of life, once rebuilt in hope and aspiration, had crumbled when darkness crept through her soul again. Grief returned, not loud and dramatic, but slow and steady, like a serum bleeding from her heart. Tears she had never allowed herself to cry began to flow. Tower after tower of illusion collapsed around her. She stood in the rubble of her disasters, center stage, still hoping deep down for someone to come rescue her like the old fairy tales. But the emptiness embraced her. No savior came. A voice from the spirit spoke gently. There is no fairy godmother in this story. The only way out of this mess is through the eye of the storm. Reflection. This paragraph pierces the heart of realization that part of Lily's true identity is her uniqueness. She would never fit in, which In her mind, she, she in her mind meant she didn't belong. Of course, this isn't true. However, her tainted identity hung between the shadows of death and the gallows of hell. That's how deeply she felt the rejection of who she is. My pearls of wisdom. It's amazing how the brightest jewel sparkled with her unique resilience to be her superhero and rescue herself through her faithful guidance and courage of her inner child treacle. Through the storm, the spirit guide led her to leaned in to reassure her. We've got your back. We told you none of your toxic companions would rescue you from the collapsing tower of belonging. All they ever did was drain your soul until the tower of disappointment fell and buried you alive. The guide's presence grew closer, steady and knowing. The only way out of this mess, they said again, is through the eye of the storm. Treacle's sweetness rose like a balm to soothe the broken places. The princess, weary and aching, followed. She went through reluctantly, but fully. Lily's mood lifted as her battered soul peeled itself off the basement floor. Light crept in quietly, but persistently. Spirit moved her from one season of her life to the next. There were scenes she had buried, a betrayal of witchcraft, of family wounds too heavy for a child to hold. She faced them down, not as the frightened girl, but as the sovereign woman she was becoming. The angel searched Princess Lily's heart as if to ask, are you willing to step across the threshold of forgiveness? Treacle whispered, don't turn your back now. We're almost there. Can't you see the horizon? We've got your back. The princess' crown caught the glow of the rising light. She held Treacle's hand and stretched towards freedom. The shackles broke, the darkness lifted, and the brilliance of Lily and Treacle's resurrection radiated through the sky. Reflections, the presence of transmutation and transitions of letting go of the family wounds that ravished her self-esteem dissolved as Lily and Treacle crossed the threshold, and the abandonment issues that once plagued her life became a distant memory. My pearls of wisdom, letting go of what doesn't serve you is a balm to one's soul. Resurrected return. 2 years had passed since Lily gave birth to new life, both within and around her, aligning fully with Treacle's radiant strength. She received a spiritual message. The transmutation of her pain had freed generations of ancestors from karmic chains. Even the king was drawn out of his castle to witness his freedom. The forgotten jewel he had left behind, the true treasure, had become his savior. His crown called after the princess, if only to hear her sacred words of forgiveness. Lily hesitated, but answered. The spirit guide reminded her, you're doing this for yourself, not for the king. He has acknowledged you, and that's all you ever needed. Your sovereignty is not required. Your sovereignty does not require his love, approval, or acceptance. You claimed those for yourself when you transmuted the dark karma. Princess Lily looked to Treacle, glowing with creative freedom and life. She searched Treacle's face and whispered, welcome home. Reflection. Interesting how the king decides to magically appear after he received the freedom from the curses he used over his family. Pearls of wisdom. The breath of freedom feels like the ultimate act of forgiveness. Oh, what an interesting fairy tale. Now let's take a look at the parallels between this fairy tale, Treacle's journey, an innocent and an inner child speaks, and the tale of Princess Cayuga. Both stories of my fairy tale and Princess Lily and Treacle, and the tale of Princess Cayuga explore the quiet, tender journey of soul returning to its true self after years of abandonment, suppression, and forgetting. The inner child as the guide. In my story, Treacle represents Lily's inner child, the witness, the protector, and the keeper of the truth. In the other story, in Princess Cayuga, the young Cayuga also carries that bright inner essence that remembers who she truly is, even as the world pressures her to become someone else. Both tales show that healing doesn't come from the outside. Of course, it comes from the inside and our inner light. The wound of being unseen. Princess Lily grows up under the shadow of a father who cannot see or hold her heart. Her pain is quiet, but it shapes her entire life. Princess Cayuga too, is cherished for what she represents beauty, status, potential, but not for who she is. In both stories, the deepest wound is the same, a treasured child whose true self goes unseen. The performances of becoming who others want, pardon me. Lily becomes a prima ballerina, performing the version of life expected of her. Cayuga is turned into the perfect noble woman, elegant yet restricted, losing her joy along the way. Both characters are forced into roles that silence their natural gifts, and both eventually break free. Last but not least, the breaking point and the awakening. My fairy tale central turning point is Lily standing in the rubble of her illusions, realizing no savior is coming. Princess Cayuga moment is when she finally voices her grief and the longing to return to her true home. Each heroine crosses a spiritual threshold where truth rises and old identities fall away. Five, the return to sovereignty. Lily's resurrection is a reclaiming of her worth, her creativity, and her inner child. Cayuga's return to the moon is a symbolic homecoming, an ancient, an ancient back in the authentic nature. Both stories end with the same revelation. Sovereignty is not given by others, it's remembered from within. Oh, this was a really interesting fairy tale and comparison. The trigger points, how confronting my abandonment issues led to the transmutation of generational karma. Well, how that happened is that spirit really confronted me and basically said, look, you're never really going to heal unless you let go, unless you just really, really let go and forgive. And not only let go and forgive, but the most important point is that really dethrone the martyr. Dethrone the martyr and let go of bearing the weight of your parents' responsibility and the cause. They were the cause of what took place. I was not never the cause. I was the change agent. So I had to throw off the throne of the martyr where I was bearing misplaced responsibility. And it was time for me to take responsibility for my own life and for my own consequences of my life and my choices and become the change agent, not only for me, for my family, and for my ancestors. And so that's really how I did it, with the acceptance and the realization that this lie that I had believed, that I had to bear the weight, and I was the cause of the family karma and negativity was just misplaced. And as soon as I recognized that, I knew that I could finally let go and cross because I realized I was not responsible for the cause, but I am responsible to be the change agent. So thank you very much for listening. And let's close with today's quote, and it's healing is a lifelong lesson, blessing, and gift we give ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Healing is a lifelong lesson, blessing, and gift we give ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Goodbye, and thank you for listening. Until next time.